Have you ever watched your own wedding fall apart right before your eyes? Not because your future husband said, "I don't," but because your own sister, your maid of honor, decided to destroy it. That's what happened to me, right as the sun was setting on my perfect day. My name is Virginia Ray. I'm 32 years old, and for the last year, I had planned every tiny detail of my wedding. From the flowers to the music, everything was supposed to be a dream. A dream my older sister, Blair, turned into a nightmare with just 2 words. If you have ever been hurt by someone you trusted with all your heart, please, I am asking you, subscribe to my channel. Hearing my story might help you, and knowing you're listening will help me. I need to know that I am not alone in this world. The ceremony was in a beautiful garden in Savannah, Georgia. The air smelled like sweet jasmine and hope. My fiancé, Kalen, was holding my hand so tight, his eyes telling me he loved me more than words could say. Everything was perfect, absolutely perfect, until Blair started walking. She wasn't walking toward me. She was walking toward the man taking our pictures. My quiet, gentle Uncle Arthur. He's my dad's older brother, a man with silver hair and kind eyes who has always been my hero. He looked so happy for me, clicking away with his camera. Blair marched right up to him in her silk dress that cost more than my first car. She looked like a supermodel, but her face was twisted and ugly with anger. She ignored the minister, ignored our parents, and ignored the 100 guests watching in stunned silence. This was her show now. She pointed a perfectly manicured finger at our uncle. "You're fired," she announced, her voice echoing through the quiet garden. Kalen and I just froze. The guests gasped. The reason she gave. "Your camera is old, and you look unprofessional. You're ruining the pictures for my sister's wedding." My uncle's smile faded. He looked down at the camera in his hands, the same camera he'd carried for 40 years across deserts and mountains. He didn't say a word. He just looked so hurt, so confused. The pain in his eyes broke my heart into a million tiny pieces. Please tell me where you're watching this from in the comments below. I truly believe that if you do, a wave of peace and protection will cover you and your family. May you never feel the kind of betrayal I felt in that moment. It's a pain I wouldn't wish on anyone. Blair had no idea what she had just done. She didn't know who she had just insulted. She thought he was just some old man, my poor relative, doing us a favor. She had no idea she had just spat in the face of a living legend. And I was about to make her regret it for the rest of her life. For a second the whole world stopped. The birds stopped singing. The gentle breeze died. All I could hear was the blood pounding in my ears. Kalen squeezed my hand, a silent question in his grip. "What do we do?" But I couldn't answer. My mind was flashing back in time. I remembered being 7 years old, crying because I broke my dad's old film camera. My sister Blair had laughed at me, calling me clumsy. But Uncle Arthur didn't laugh. He knelt, picked up the broken pieces and said, "A camera is just a box, Ginny. The pictures are what matter, and they live forever in here." He had pointed to my heart. Now, that same kind man was being treated like trash by the sister who never understood him. A week before the wedding, Blair had tried to take over. "We can't have him, Virginia," she'd whined over the phone. "He's an amateur. We need a professional with a big Instagram following. What will people think?" I almost told her then. I almost screamed his real name into the phone, the name that hangs on the walls of museums. The name that is printed in the most famous magazines in the world. But Uncle Arthur had made me promise. "I'm retired, Ginny," he'd said. "I just want to be your uncle today." So I kept his secret. For him. And this was his reward. Humiliation in front of our entire family. I watched him slowly, carefully, put the lens cap back on his camera. His hands, which had been steady in war zones and on icy mountains, were trembling slightly. What would you do? What would you do if your own sister, who lives a perfect lie, tried to destroy the one pure, true thing in your life? Blair was married to a rich man named Brad. She had a huge house and a fancy car. She had everything she ever wanted, but it was all for show. And I knew her biggest secret. The one she trusted me with on a tearful night a year ago. A secret so dark it would burn her perfect, fake world to the ground. She thought I would keep it forever. She thought family loyalty meant protecting her lies while she destroyed my happiness. She was wrong. Family loyalty means protecting the people who are kind. People who are good. It means protecting a man like my Uncle Arthur. Kalen whispered my name, his voice full of worry. Virginia, just let it go. We can fix this later. But some things can't be fixed later. Some wounds are made in public, and they must be healed in public. I gently pulled my hand from Kalen's. I saw the fear in his eyes, but I also saw trust. He knew I had to do something. My heart was no longer breaking. It was hardening into steel. I took one step forward, then another. I walked past my shocked parents. I walked past Blair, who was smiling, thinking she had won. I walked right up to the little white stand where our minister stood, and I reached for the microphone. Everyone gasped. My wedding was about to become a trial. My hand trembled as I held the microphone. It was heavy, but my voice felt even heavier with all the words I needed to say. Blair's smile vanished. Her eyes, usually so cold, now had a flicker of panic. She knew me. She knew when I was about to do something she wouldn't like. "Excuse me, everyone," I said, my voice shaking at first, then growing stronger. All eyes were on me now. My wedding guests, my almost husband, and especially my sister. Uncle Arthur looked up, a puzzled frown on his face. His camera still cradled in his arms. I looked at Blair. Her face was turning a shade of purple, but she still tried to look innocent. Like she hadn't just crushed someone's spirit. Like she hadn't just tried to ruin my most important day. But I wasn't just doing this for me. I was doing it for Uncle Arthur. My sister Blair just fired our wedding photographer, I continued, making sure every single person heard me clearly. She said he was unprofessional. She said his camera was old. I paused, letting those words hang in the air like a bitter cloud. A few whispers started in the crowd. People looked at Blair, then at Uncle Arthur, then back at me. Confusion painted on their faces. They had no idea who he really was. No one did except my dad, Kalen, and me. It was a secret we had kept for too long. What Blair doesn't know, I said, my voice now steady and clear, is that our Uncle Arthur isn't just an old man with an old camera. I looked at Uncle Arthur, and he slowly shook his head, a silent plea to stop. But I couldn't. Not anymore. "He's Arthur Vance," I declared, and a few gasps rippled through the crowd. "As in the Arthur Vance. The National Geographic photographer." I let that sink in. The name, the magazine, the legend. Blair's mouth dropped open so wide, I thought her jaw might hit the ground. Silence. Heavy, shocking silence. Then a man in the back, a distant cousin who was a big photography buff, shouted, "No way! Arthur Vance is here." More gasps, more whispers. People started looking at Uncle Arthur with new eyes. Eyes full of respect and awe. Uncle Arthur looked like he wanted to disappear. He had been a ghost in our family for so long, famous to the world but just Uncle Arthur to us. He just wanted to take pictures of his niece's wedding, without any fuss, without any attention. But Blair had stolen that from him. "This is the man who won Pulitzer Prizes," I explained, my eyes fixed on Blair's now pale face. "The man whose work hangs in the Smithsonian. The man who has documented wars, discovered new species, and shown the world its own beauty for over 40 years. I took a deep breath. And my sister just fired him. The wedding was officially over. What was coming next was a storm. The world didn't just go quiet. It felt like all the air had been sucked out of the garden. Blair stood frozen, her face as white as my wedding dress. She looked like a statue, a beautiful, perfect statue cracking from the inside out. Her eyes darted from me to Uncle Arthur, then to our parents. Our mom and dad looked just as stunned. My mother had her hand over her mouth, her eyes wide with a mix of horror and, strangely, guilt. Why did she look guilty? Did she know Blair was going to do this? Had they talked about it? My heart sank even further. Blair finally found her voice, but it was ugly and sharp. "So what?" she snapped, trying to get her power back. "He's still just family. I wanted my sister to have the best. Someone modern. Someone whose pictures don't look like they belong in a dusty old book." Her words were meant to hurt, to make me feel small. But they didn't work. Everyone could now see her for what she was. Cruel and ignorant. My fiancé, Kalen, walked over and stood beside me. He didn't touch the microphone, but his presence was a shield. He was with me. What a strange feeling to have your future husband support you as you destroy your own wedding. But this was about more than a wedding now. It was about right and wrong. It was about kindness and cruelty. It was about the secrets that families keep to protect the wrong people. I glanced over at Uncle Arthur. He wasn't angry. He just looked tired. Tired of the noise. Tired of the drama. He zipped up his old leather camera bag, gave me a small, sad smile, and began to walk away, past all the whispering guests. He was leaving. He was just going to disappear like he always did. But I wouldn't let him. I wouldn't let her chase him away. Not this time. My decision was made in a heartbeat. I knew what I had to do, not just for him but for me. This perfect wedding, this dream I had built, was already a nightmare. You can't build a marriage on a foundation of lies and cruelty. And Blair's life was the biggest lie of all. The secret she told me a year ago, the one about her perfect husband Brad and where their money really came from, flashed in my mind. She thought I would protect her. But how could I protect her when she had just attacked the heart of our family? "Wait," I said into the microphone. My voice was calm now. Deadly calm. Uncle Arthur stopped walking. Everyone looked at me, waiting to see what I would do next. Would I forgive her? Would I ask my uncle to stay? Would I try to save this broken day? I looked at Kalen, who nodded, telling me without words that he would follow my lead. Then I looked at the crowd. "Thank you all for coming," I said, my voice ringing with finality. "But there will be no wedding today." Then I dropped the microphone. The thud it made was the sound of my old life ending. The sound of the microphone hitting the grass was followed by a collective gasp from our guests. It was the sound of a dream dying. Chaos erupted. People stood up, whispering, pointing. My mother rushed towards me, her face a storm of tears and anger. "Virginia, what have you done?" she cried, her voice breaking. Blair's husband, Brad, a man who always looked like his suit was too tight, grabbed Blair's arm. He was whispering in her ear, his face dark with fury. But there was something else in his eyes too. Fear. Why did he look so scared? What did he think I was going to say next? I didn't care about any of them. My eyes scanned the garden, searching for one person. Uncle Arthur. He was at the edge of the lawn, near the old iron gate, his back to the wreckage of my wedding. He was escaping just like he always did. But I couldn't let him leave thinking he was alone. I started walking towards him, my heavy dress feeling like a chain. Kalen appeared at my side. "I'll take care of this, Ginny," he said, his voice calm and strong. "Go to your uncle." He turned to face the confused crowd, ready to protect me. In that moment, I knew I had chosen the right man, even if our wedding was in ruins. But then my father stood in front of me, blocking my way. His face was pale and tight. "Virginia, please," he begged in a low voice. "Think of the family. Apologize to your sister. We can fix this. Apologize." He wanted me to apologize to the person who had just lit the match. Suddenly I was a little girl again, 10 years old. Blair had smashed a delicate porcelain bird Uncle Arthur had given me. When I cried, my parents told me to be the bigger person and apologize for upsetting Blair. They always chose her. They always chose the beautiful, perfect lie over the messy truth. "No," I said, my voice as cold as ice. I pushed past him, feeling a part of my heart turn to stone. It wasn't just Blair's betrayal that hurt. It was my parents' willingness to let it happen, to sweep it under the rug to keep up appearances. They had let the poison spread for years. I felt like I was seeing my family for the first time. Not as the loving parents I remembered, but as the keepers of a pretty cage. And I was finally breaking free. This wasn't just about a ruined wedding. It was about my entire life. I reached the gate just as Uncle Arthur put his hand on the latch. "Uncle Arthur, wait," I called out, my voice filled with a desperation I didn't know I had. He stopped, his shoulders slumped in defeat, but he didn't turn around. He couldn't even look at me. Then my mother's voice screamed from across the lawn, a final, desperate command. "Virginia Ray, if you walk out that gate with him, don't you dare ever come back. You will no longer be our daughter." The choice was clear. The fake family behind me or the broken man in front of me. My mother's words hung in the air, sharp and cold like broken glass. "You will no longer be our daughter." For a moment I felt a sharp pain, like a door slamming shut on my childhood. But then a strange calm washed over me. This wasn't a punishment, it was a release. I looked back one last time. I saw my mother's face, twisted with rage. I saw my father looking at the ground, a weak man who would rather live in a pretty lie than stand up for his own brother. And I saw Blair. She had a small, cruel smile on her face. She thought she had won. She thought that by making my parents disown me, she had taken everything. But she was wrong. Love isn't a thing your parents can give you and then take away like a toy. Something you choose. And my choice was standing right in front of me, his back still turned. I reached out and gently touched Uncle Arthur's arm. He finally turned to face me, and his kind eyes were filled with so much pain. "Ginny, no," he whispered, his voice rough. "Don't throw away your family for me. Just go back. I'll be fine." "No," I said, my voice firm. I took his hand, his wrinkled, strong hand that had held a camera through earthquakes and storms, and I held it tight. "You are my family. Real family doesn't ask you to choose. Real family shows up." My words were for him, but they were also for myself. With my other hand, I pushed open the heavy iron gate. It creaked loudly, like it was groaning in protest. I took a step out of the perfect garden and onto the simple sidewalk outside. I pulled my uncle with me. We were out. We were free. Behind us, my mother screamed my name again, but it sounded distant now. Then I heard another sound. Running footsteps. I turned, my heart pounding, and saw Kalen running towards us. His face set with determination. He hadn't even hesitated. He didn't try to reason with my parents. He just came. He ran right through the gate and wrapped his arms around me. "I'm with you," he whispered into my hair. "Wherever you go, I go." Tears I didn't know I was holding back finally streamed down my face. I wasn't alone. I had the two best men in the world with me. Then Uncle Arthur spoke. His voice no longer sad, but filled with a new, hard strength. He looked from me to Kalen, and his eyes had a fire in them I had never seen before. "She has no idea what she's done," he said, his voice low and serious. "She thinks I was just taking pictures." He unzipped his old leather camera bag, but he didn't pull out a camera. He reached inside and took out a tiny dark object. He held it up for us to see. It was a small digital recorder. "My camera was on," he said. "But this was on too. And it recorded every word." Kalen and I stared at the small black recorder in Uncle Arthur's hand. A recorder. Why would he be recording audio at a wedding? My mind raced, trying to understand. This wasn't just an old man's hobby. This was something else entirely. There was a plan here. "I haven't been fully retired for a while, Ginny," Uncle Arthur said. His voice low and serious, the voice of a man who has seen too much. "For the last 6 months, I've been looking into your sister's husband. Into Brad's company." My heart stopped. Brad's company managed retirement money for old people, many of them in nursing homes. The secret Blair had told me that tearful night suddenly felt like a heavy stone in my stomach. She'd said Brad was creative with the accounts, that he was borrowing money from people who would never notice. "Brad has been stealing millions of dollars," Uncle Arthur continued, his eyes hard as flint. He's been taking the life savings of the elderly. People who worked their whole lives, just to have it all stolen by him. I took this job, photographing your wedding, to get close to find the final proof. Felt sick. My wedding wasn't just a happy day for him. It was a mission. He had put himself in the line of fire, and my own sister had tried to push him out. She hadn't just been mean. She had been trying to protect a criminal. To protect her perfect stolen life. They knew, Uncle Arthur said, pressing a button on the recorder. They knew who I was all along. He held the device up, and a faint, tinny sound came out. It was a recording of two people whispering, taken before the ceremony had even started. It was Blair and Brad. Brad's voice was a low hiss. "He's here. I saw him talking to your dad. We have to get rid of him, Blair. Arthur Vance isn't just your uncle. He's the best investigative reporter in the country. He knows about the pension funds." Then I heard my sister's cold reply. "Don't worry. I'll handle it. I'll make a scene. I'll fire him in front of everyone. I'll humiliate him so badly that no one will ever believe a word he says. He'll just look like a bitter old man." The recording clicked off. The silence that followed was deafening. It wasn't a random act of cruelty. It was a calculated attack. My own sister had planned to destroy the reputation of a good man to cover up her husband's crimes. She chose a thief over her own blood. I looked at Uncle Arthur, and for the first time, I saw the warrior behind the kind eyes. He was a lion who had been pretending to be a lamb. He had the proof of their conspiracy. The motive, the plan, everything was on that little black rectangle. "This recording proves they planned to obstruct my investigation," he said. "But it's not enough to put him away for good." He looked at me, his gaze intense. "But you can, Ginny. You have the final piece. The secret she told you is the key to everything." Now, the war wasn't just his. It was mine too. The weight of my uncle's words settled on my soul. A secret wasn't just a secret anymore. The tearful confession Blair had made to me a year ago wasn't just a moment of sisterly bonding. It was evidence. It was the key. She had handed me the weapon that could destroy her. Kalen wrapped his arm tighter around my shoulders. He looked from Uncle Arthur's determined face to my shocked one. "Whatever it takes, Ginny," he said. His voice a solid rock in my swirling sea of confusion and rage. "We do this together. Tell us, what's the secret?" I took a deep breath, the scent of jasmine from the ruined wedding still clinging to my dress. "A year ago, Blair came to me crying. I began, my voice quiet. Brad was scared of being investigated. He said his official company books were perfect, but he kept the real ones, the ones showing the stolen money, hidden." I looked at Uncle Arthur, the pieces of the puzzle clicking into place in my mind. He didn't hide them in a safe or an office. He hid them somewhere no one would ever look. Somewhere sentimental. Somewhere he thought was safe forever because it belonged to our childhood. My voice broke for a second, the memory of it so innocent, now so ugly. He hid the ledgers in a waterproof box and buried them under a loose floorboard in our old childhood treehouse, the one in the woods behind our parents' house. A look of understanding dawned on Uncle Arthur's face. "The perfect hiding spot," he breathed. "Personal, private, and impossible for federal agents to find without a very specific tip." He looked at me, and his eyes weren't sad anymore. They were proud. "Ginny, that's the smoking gun. But we couldn't just walk over there." By now, my parents would have told Blair that I had left. She and Brad would be in a full-blown panic. They would guess I might know something. That treehouse would be the first place Brad would go to destroy the evidence. We were in a race against time. Kalen led us to his car, a simple sedan that felt like a getaway vehicle. I sat in the front, my white dress bunched up around me, a bride on the run from her own life. We drove in silence to a cheap motel on the outskirts of town, the kind with flickering neon signs. Inside the small, clean room, the three of us became a war council. Uncle Arthur pulled out a map on his phone. He looked at me. Blair trusted you once, Ginny. She let her guard down. Now we have to use that trust to help all the people they've hurt. My sister didn't just break my heart that day. She didn't just humiliate a good man. She made a choice. She chose a life built on the suffering of helpless, elderly people. And in that dingy motel room, I made my choice too. My sister wanted a perfect wedding day. Now I was going to give her a perfect judgment day. The air in the motel room was thick with a strange mix of sorrow and purpose. This was it. There was no going back. Uncle Arthur laid out a simple plan. Brad will go for those books tonight, he said. He's panicking. We need to get there first, but we can't just walk in. They'll be watching. He looked at me. Ginny, you're the distraction. You have to call them. You have to make them believe you are somewhere else, doing something that will make them all look at each other instead of looking out the back window. My heart hammered against my ribs. I had to call my mother. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold my phone. What do you say to the mother who just disowned you? How do you use her own fears against her? I took a shaky breath, pressed her number, and put the phone on speaker for Uncle Arthur and Kaylin to hear. She answered on the first ring, her voice a furious hiss. What do you want, Virginia? Before she could say more, I cut her off, my voice high and filled with fake panic. Mom, I'm at the police station. I lied, the words tasting like poison. I'm telling them everything Blair told me about Brad. Silence. Then chaos erupted on the other end of the line. I could hear my mother shouting for my father, for Blair. She's at the police station. She's going to ruin us. I heard Blair scream my name. The distraction was working. They were looking inward at their own crumbling world. While they were screaming at each other, Kaylin and Uncle Arthur slipped out of the motel room and drove towards my parents' house. They parked down the street and crept through the shadows of the neighborhood, like ghosts returning to a place they no longer belonged. From the phone, I could still hear the panic. Tell us where you are, my father yelled. We can talk about this. I stayed silent, letting them imagine the worst. Letting them feel the same terror they had allowed Brad to inflict on dozens of innocent, elderly people. Kaylin and Uncle Arthur reached the edge of the woods behind my childhood home. The party lights from my ruined wedding still cast a sad glow through the trees. They could hear the faint sound of my family shouting inside the house. The coast was clear. They moved quickly towards the old oak tree. They found the treehouse, a dark shape against the night sky. It looked smaller than I remembered. Uncle Arthur, old but still strong, pulled himself up. Kaylin followed right behind him. They found the loose floorboard I told them about. With a quiet creak, they pulled it up. Underneath, nestled in the dark, dusty space, was a small, black waterproof box. It was real. The proof was right there. As Kaylin reached down to grab it, a twig snapped on the ground below them. Heavy footstep. Someone else was in the woods. Someone was watching them. My breath caught in my throat. Kaylin shielded me with his body, and Uncle Arthur stood frozen, holding the box. A man stepped out from behind a tree. He wasn't Brad. He was a tall man in a simple dark suit, his face calm and serious. He wasn't a threat. He was a promise. Mr. Vance, the man said, his voice quiet and respectful. We have the package. He nodded towards the box. Then, more men in similar suits appeared silently from the woods around us. They were FBI agents. My uncle hadn't just been investigating. He had been leading the whole operation. Uncle Arthur finally smiled, a real, relieved smile. The phone call, Ginny, he explained to me. It wasn't just a distraction. It was a legally recorded confession. By screaming about the police, they admitted they knew about the crimes and were trying to stop you from reporting them. That was the last piece we needed. As he spoke, the night lit up with flashing red and blue lights. They weren't in the woods with us. They were at the front of the house. We could hear muffled shouts, car doors slamming. The trap had closed. While they were focused on my fake phone call, the Real Justice had arrived at their front door. I imagined Blair's face. The perfect makeup, the expensive dress, The look of pure shock as she realized her perfect world was a prison, and the doors were just locked. She had tried to fire the photographer, but he had captured her entire crime on film, on tape, and in his heart. Brad and Blair were arrested that night. The little black box from the treehouse told the whole story, every stolen dollar, every broken promise. The news called Brad a monster. But they never mentioned my sister's name. Uncle Arthur made sure of that. He destroyed the criminal, not the family. That was his final act of kindness. All the money was found and returned to the people in the nursing homes. Their stolen retirements, their peace of mind, was given back to them. That was the real victory. It wasn't about revenge on my sister. It was about justice for the people she helped hurt. That felt better than any wedding party. A month later, Kaylin and I got married. Not in a fancy garden, but at a simple courthouse. Uncle Arthur was our only guest and our witness. He took just one picture with his old famous camera. It was a picture of the three of us smiling. The family we had chosen. The family that was built on truth. Sometimes you have to lose everything you thought you wanted to find what you truly need. I lost a sister that day, but I found myself. I found the strength to stand up for what is right, no matter the cost. My perfect wedding day turned into the beginning of my perfect life. If this story touched your heart, please, I'm asking you, click that like button, share this with someone who needs to feel strong, and subscribe to my channel. Every subscription feels like a vote for kindness over cruelty, for truth over lies. Thank you for listening. You are not alone.